pestilences, and earthquakes, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world, and then shall the end come.
Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?
Here's today's prophecy update. What is there about the city of Jerusalem? More wars have been fought over Jerusalem than over any other city. Jesus was crucified in Jerusalem. It's the only national capital that is not recognized by the UN. And it's the city the world's final battle, Armageddon, will be fought over. What's so special about Jerusalem? We'll talk about it on this edition of End of the Age. Well, I'm sitting in Jerusalem right now for this broadcast. I'm looking out over the beautiful city. The windows of my room are wide open. The curtains are wide open so that I can see over on the Mount of Olives and a panoramic view of Jerusalem. Wow, what a city. There's so much about this city that we want to talk about today. Now, before we actually begin, let me remind everyone out there that I will be speaking right here in Jerusalem this coming Sunday evening at 7:30 Jerusalem time. I will be at the Kalal building, 97 Jaffa Street in Jerusalem, in what is called the Pavilion Auditorium on the first floor. Everyone is invited. There's no charge to attend. I'll be speaking on From Here to Armageddon. Every person in Jerusalem, every person in Israel should really be at this meeting. Now, I know that's not going to be possible because room would not even allow. However, every person on earth should really experience this lesson, From Here to Armageddon. Really, it's more than just a lesson. We've done an 8-lesson series entitled From Here to Armageddon, and we talk about what's going to happen from today to the second coming of Jesus Christ and the Battle of Armageddon. Now, I cannot tell you the exact time. You will, in the videos, see a timeline. It's crystal clear, and we give you scripture for every single thing that we say. So you will see a timeline. The only thing in question right now is how quickly will this timeline kick in. Now, in my opinion, we may be 1, 2, or 3 years away from the beginning of the final 7, so we may be within a 10-year window right now, maybe 11 or 12. But we could be in an 8-year window right now because it looks like we're on the brink of this journey from here to Armageddon. It's going to affect every single one of us. So if you have friends in the Jerusalem area or anywhere in Israel, urge them to make their way this coming Sunday evening, that's October the 30th, to the Kalal building, 97 Jaffa Street, right here in downtown Jerusalem. It's on the main floor of the Kalal building. It's the same building that our prophecy college is located in. And it will be in the Pavilion Auditorium. Hope to see everyone there. So email your friends, text your friends, however you communicate with all your friends in Israel. Let them know. Let's spread the word like wildfire and let them know what's going on, because Israel and Jerusalem will be the number one players in the coming events over the next 8 to 10 years. So it's going to be very, very critical that the people of Israel know what is really going on. But let me remind you, it's going to affect all of us. If you would like to have your own set of the 8-lesson series called From Here to Armageddon, just give us a call. The number to call is 1-800-END-TIME. And do I recommend this? If I could, I would make you do it. That's just how strong I am about it. I think it's absolutely mandatory for every person to get a good sense of what we're getting ready to walk straight into. Now, it's not all scary stuff. There's some scary things in there, yes, but God has a plan through this final time. God's planned all this out. Now, Satan's going to try to interfere, but we talk about what Satan's going to try to do. We talk about what God is going to do and the great revival that's going to come even while the Antichrist and the false prophet are implementing their one world government and their one world religion. So we bring it all into focus so that we're not really trying to scare you. We're trying to excite you and enthuse you to be a tool in God's hands in this last race to the rapture. So it's called From Here to Armageddon. You can order it right now. The number to call, 1-800-Endtime. I think you can even go online and order it there. Now we're talking about Jerusalem. What an incredible city. I'm sitting here looking at Jerusalem right now. Of course, it's nighttime here. It's about 11 o'clock at night, Jerusalem time. So the lights are beautiful over the city. I sat out here today as I was preparing for this broadcast. I heard the Muslim imams come on their loudspeakers calling people to prayer, and then it would die away for a while. And a few hours later, here it came back again. I watched the traffic as it just moves rapidly around. I mean, this is a busy, busy place. Think about this. There was no nation of Israel prior to 1948, at least no modern nation of Israel. The Romans scattered the Jewish people out of their homeland. Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 AD. And then ultimately the Jews were scattered, and they have been filtered through the nations for almost 2,000 years. The nation of Israel was reborn in 1948, May the 14th. Since that time, they've built a nation of 8 million people from nothing. Now, let me tell you, it was desert here. It was very, very primitive. Today, you come here, a modern, thriving nation bursting at the seams. Intel has 3 factories here. Apple has factories here. The technology is just amazing. Some of the best technology in the world has been produced from this little nation called Israel. It is an amazing place to go from zero almost to a teeming, powerful nation of 8 million people. And by the way, their military is rated somewhere among the top 5 in the world. Can you believe that for a nation this small? But they have to, because they're surrounded by enemies that would like to snuff them out. As we were landing at Ben Gurion Airport early this morning, I looked around at everything and thought, there are people that would just love to destroy everything here. There are enemies, so Israel has to be so careful in everything that she does, and their security is second to none, I might say. So anyway, I'm here a little bit early. Our group is going to be coming here in 3 or 4 days, and I will be meeting them here in Jerusalem, but we're in for just an absolutely incredible time. If you didn't get to come on this trip and you want to come next one, the next one comes April the 30th, and it's going to be Israel and Rome. So it's going to be a very, very special trip. If you're interested in that, give us a call. The number to call is 1-800-Endtime. Now let's talk about Jerusalem for a while. First of all, actually it all began when God sent Abraham here to Jerusalem to offer his son Isaac. Now, God didn't want him to do it. He just wanted to know that he was willing to do it. God stopped him while he had the knife raised in the air. He was right there on Mount Moriah. I can see it from here. That's where the Dome of the Rock presently stands. That's where the Al-Aqsa Mosque stands. And that's where Israel's third temple will be built within the next few years. It will be built without disturbing the Dome of the Rock or the Al-Aqsa Mosque. So Abraham came here. God told him, I want you to go to a mountain which I will show thee in the land of Moriah. Well, Mount Moriah today is known as the Temple Mount. So he came here. He went through all the preparatory moves to offer his son Isaac as God told him to do. And God was watching all the time to see if Abraham's faith would hold out. Well, it did. He raised his arm to bring the knife down, and an angel stayed his hand and said, okay, that's enough. Now I know that you've withheld nothing from me. And I want to say to all of you out there, God wants to know that he is first in all of our lives. If he can't be first, he will not be in our lives at all. So it's always important for each of us to make sure that God is not second, third, or fourth, but he is first. He is number one. So that was the first test here. And God chose this place. God told Abraham, come to a mountain which I will show thee. And he showed him Mount Moriah, which today is the Temple Mount. Then David made arrangements to build the first temple. His son Solomon actually did the building when they offered the dedicatorial sacrifice. The day they dedicated the beautiful edifice to God, fire supernaturally fell from heaven and consumed their sacrifice. It was an awesome time. All of Israel witnessed this. They watched the fire supernaturally fall from heaven, and that is still in the hearts of the Jewish people today. Well, then as time went along, Jesus was crucified here. Let me read a couple of scriptures, though, just to make sure that you understand the biblical importance of Jerusalem. This is 1 Kings chapter 11, verse number 36. And unto his son will I give one tribe, that David my servant may have a light always before me in Jerusalem, the city which I have chosen to put my name there. Other scriptures say I've put my name there forever. So Jerusalem is not just another city. Almighty God himself said, I will put my name in Jerusalem. Well, then in Luke chapter number 13, verse number 33, it's almost time for Jesus to be crucified. He knows that it's coming up, Passover's coming up, and he's to be the Passover lamb that year. And in Luke 13:33, Jesus said, nevertheless, I must walk today and tomorrow and the day following, for it cannot be that a prophet perish out of Jerusalem. So Jerusalem has been the best of things and the worst of things. So Jesus made his way during his ministry, toward the end of his ministry. He was looking over Jerusalem. This is Matthew 23:37. He said, O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophets and stonest them which are sent unto thee, how often would I have gathered thy children together, even as a hen gathereth her chickens under her wings, and you would not. Jesus came. He came here to save the Jewish people and to save the world, of course. And now he's at the end of his ministry, and he's looking over Jerusalem, probably from the Mount of Olives, because you can see all of Jerusalem from up there. And he's saying, oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how often I would have gathered you together, but you wouldn't do it. He went on to say, because thou did not know the day of your visitation, your house is left to you desolate. And a few short years after his death, Jerusalem was destroyed, and the Jewish people were dispatched to the four corners of the earth for the next 2,000 years or so. However, there's a prophecy in the Bible. They will be brought back to this place, and it has now come to pass. Well, there's things yet ahead for Jerusalem. Zechariah 14:2 states that all the nations of the world are going to invade Jerusalem. Now, there's been more wars fought over Jerusalem than any city on the planet. Let me read the prophecy of what is yet to come. Zechariah 14:2, for I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle. Now, what do you mean by all nations? I mean a United Nations force will come down to try to force Israel to comply with some mandate that they have issued. And Israel's going to refuse. They're going to mandate, undoubtedly, that Israel has to divide Jerusalem and give part of it to the Palestinians. Well, Israel's going to refuse. And a UN army made up of Russia, Iran, Turkey, Ethiopia, Libya, and others will come down under a UN flag. That's the reason it says all nations. There's not room here for all the nations of the world to be here, but the United Nations represents all the nations of the world. Every nation on earth is now a member of the UN. So all nations, the UN forces representing a resolution passed by the UN Security Council. The Lord said, I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city of Jerusalem shall be taken, and the houses rifled, and the women ravished, and half of the city shall go forth into captivity, and the residue of the people shall not be cut off from the city. So half of Jerusalem is going to fall. Fortunately, the Bible tells us that's when Jesus will come to rescue Israel from her enemies, and that's when he will defeat the world government forces He will put down all the thrones of men. He will dissolve human governments and replace human governments with his own government. And he will rule and reign for the next 1,000 years on this earth as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. All people who are in his kingdom, those who have been born again, the only way you get in his kingdom is to be born again. Except a person is born again, he cannot enter the kingdom of God. John chapter 3, verse 3 and verse number 5. So you must be born again of the water and the Spirit in order to be a part of this kingdom. But those who have taken advantage of the plan of salvation, when Jesus comes, we will be changed from mortal beings to immortal beings like he was after his resurrection. And we will then be caught up to meet Jesus in the air. And we will be with him there. We will go with him then to the Mount of Olives, which is just over to my left. Sorry you can't see it from where you are. Nevertheless, we will come down onto the Mount of Olives, at which time the Jewish people will rush out to meet their Messiah, and they'll realize this is Jesus, and they will then turn to him in mass. Let me give you a few more scriptures about Jerusalem. This one is King David, Israel's most famous king. This is Psalms 137, 5 through 6. Here's the way he felt about Jerusalem. If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget her cunning. If I do not remember thee, let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. If I prefer not Jerusalem above my chief joy. Now that's about Jerusalem. David was a warrior. He depended on his swordsmanship to live, to survive. And then also he was a writer of psalms. 150 psalms he wrote. He was a singer. He was a player of the harp. And said, let me lose all my important abilities. Let my right hand forget her cunning. Let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. If I forget Jerusalem, he held it in that high of esteem. David Ben-Gurion, the first prime minister of Israel when Israel was born in 1948, here's what he said. We regard it as our duty to declare that Jewish Jerusalem is an organic and inseparable part of the state of Israel, as it is an inseparable part of the history of Israel and of the faith of Israel. He's saying, we'll never allow Jerusalem to be separated from the nation of Israel. That's so important right now because the international forces are pressuring Israel unmercifully. The United States, the United Nations, the European Union, they're all saying that Israel's got to withdraw to the 67 borders, which mean to redivide Jerusalem, to surrender Jerusalem, including Mount Moriah, because Mount Moriah was in East Jerusalem prior to the 1967 war. Mr. Teddy Kollek, who was mayor of Jerusalem, I think, for like 25 years. And he's loved by everyone here. He's revered by everyone here. Here's what he had to say about Jerusalem. For 3,000 years, Jerusalem has been the center of Jewish hope and longing. No other city has played such a dominant role in the history, culture, religion, and consciousness of a people as has Jerusalem in the life of Jewry and Judaism. Throughout centuries of exile, Jerusalem remained alive in the hearts of Jews everywhere as the focal point of Jewish history, the symbol of ancient glory, spiritual fulfillment, and modern renewal. This heart and soul of the Jewish people engenders the thought that if you want one simple word to symbolize all of Jewish history, that word would be Jerusalem. So David Ben-Gurion is simply saying, without Jerusalem, there is no Israel. That's the reason that Israel is so resistant to the possibility of dividing Jerusalem. Mr. Elhanan Leib Lewinsky, here's what he said. Without Jerusalem, the land of Israel is a body without a soul. And so on and on it goes. Teddy Kollek, one other statement he made, if you want one simple word to symbolize all of Jewish history, that word would be Jerusalem. So Jerusalem is not just another place. It's the place that God chose to put his name. It's the place that the Battle of Armageddon will be fought over. And it's the place where more wars have been fought than any other city on the planet. Sorry to say that's not over. One more is coming at least. The Battle of Armageddon, when the nations of the world under a UN flag will come down against Israel to try to force Israel to subject itself to the edict of the United Nations. Now, just so you can have a little bit of a feeling of the history of Jerusalem, let's go way back to the first century. During the first Jewish-Roman War, which would be 66 to 73 AD, the population of Jerusalem was an estimated 600,000 persons by Roman historian Tacitus, while Josephus estimated that there were as many as 1.1 million who were killed in the war. Josephus also wrote that 97,000 were sold as slaves. So Jerusalem was a booming, thriving city in the days of Jesus. These statistics were just shortly after Jesus Christ, 30 years or so after Jesus Christ. And then the Romans drove them out. Josephus wrote that 97,000 were sold as slaves and possibly 1.1 million were killed in that war when the Romans invaded Israel. Well, then the Jewish people left. They were filtered through the nations. They were banished by law of the Roman government. They could not live here, and so they looked for homes, and they've been filtered through the nations for almost 2,000 years. Jerusalem had declined to the point that by 1821, there was a population of 8,000, just a small town. 1824, 20,000. 1832, 20,500. And then from 1832 until, well, let me see here, about 1882, still the population was 21,000. So it remained between 15 and 20,000 all during the 1800s. However, it began to grow. 1885, 35,000. 1896, 45,000. Then it declined back to 32,000 in 1905. But then here we go, 1922, 62,000, 1931, 90,000, 1944, 157,000. What's making the growth so rapid? Because Adolf Hitler is closing on the Jewish people, and they're looking for a place to run, and that place was Israel. And then by 1967, 263,000, but it's not stopping. 1980, 400,000. 1990, 524,000. 1995, 617,000. And then 2000, 657. 2005, 706. 2011 is the last statistic I have. Jerusalem was 801,000. So from a couple of hundred years ago, 20,000 to 800,000 today. The booming city, and of course also the nation of Israel is booming as well. So that's what's happening right now as Jerusalem prepares to receive her king again. She received her king 2,000 years ago, but rejected him. He rode down from the Mount of Olives on a mule, and as he rode down on that donkey, there were many people who knew who he was. They took off their garments and laid them in the path of the donkey, saying, Hosanna in the highest, blessed is he that comes in the name of the Lord. But others despised him and rejected him. 1 week later, after his triumphal entrance into Jerusalem, they nailed him to a tree here in this city. So that's where we are right now. That's what's going on right now. And so we're going to be spending the next few days here in Jerusalem. I'll be broadcasting from here on all the rest of this week. So stay tuned. I'll be telling you some of the experiences we're having, some of the late-breaking things that are going on here. Israel is fighting tomorrow. UNESCO is poised to take another vote on the status of the Temple Mount. There's a lot of pressure. Israel has been on a nonstop campaign to get UNESCO to back off from banishing the history of Israel from the Temple Mount. When they had their preliminary vote a couple of weeks ago, UNESCO chose not to even mention the history of Israel. They didn't mention that the first temple stood there. They didn't mention that the second temple stood there. Totally ignored it, used the names that the Arabs used for the Temple Mount, didn't even refer to the Temple Mount at all. So now Israel has been pressuring the United Nations strongly. You've got to back off. And some of the nations that voted for that resolution say, we made a mistake. We're going to reverse and vote against it this time. My understanding is that vote is to be taken tomorrow. So we're talking today about the city like no other on the planet, Jerusalem. There's just no other city that compares to it. Like I mentioned, I'm going to be speaking here in downtown Jerusalem this coming Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Jerusalem time. I will be speaking here on the subject From Here to Armageddon. Notify your friends, your relatives, acquaintances that are here in Israel. Let them know it's happening. It's going to be at the Kalal building, which is located at 97 Jaffa Street, downtown Jerusalem. It's going to be on the main floor of the Kalal building in the Pavilion Auditorium. My subject will be From Here, where we are today, to Armageddon. I've spoken on this several times so far, but I'm pretty sure this time will be special because I'm going to be speaking on this subject from the city that will be the focus of the Battle of Armageddon. I hope all of you out there will remember that meeting in your prayers. We're hoping that many people, Jewish and others, will attend this conference because it is so critical. We are moving into this time right now. By the way, if you'd like to have your own copy of the series, 8-lesson series called From Here to Armageddon, it's available today. Call us 1-800-Endtime. I urge you to do it. I think every person listening today should have that series. Give us a call. The number to call is 1-800-Endtime. That's 1-800-363-8463. Stay with us. We'll be right back as soon as this break is over.
From Here to Armageddon, a new exciting 8-lesson series to share with your friends and family. Order yours right away.
Answering many questions like how far are we from the Battle of Armageddon? What will happen between now and then? Where are we on the timeline? Your questions answered in this exciting 8-lesson series, From Here to Armageddon.
Go to endtime.com or call 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-ENDTIME, 1-800-363-8463. Order yours right away.
Who would have thought it that the Berlin Wall is right there in the prophecies of the Bible? I'm holding here a chunk of the Berlin Wall. A friend of mine was in Berlin the night that the wall fell, November 9, 1989. He cut a piece of the wall for himself, twice this large. He was kind enough to cut it in half. He had read my book, A Message for the President, in which I had stated 3 years before this that the Berlin Wall would come down, the two Germanys would be reunited, and that would be the event that would mark the beginning of the one world governmental system called the New World Order.
Go to endtime.com or call 1-800-ENDTIME to order The Berlin Wall in Bible Prophecy.
If your radio station only carries the first 30 minutes of End of the Age, go to endtime.com and click the Watch button to continue today's broadcast. You can also finish up later by clicking the Archives button.
Well, this city is a special place. I was sitting out here on our patio of our hotel room, preparing for this broadcast, looking over at the Dome of the Rock. I can see it from here, looking to the left to the Mount of Olives, looking to the right to the Jerusalem Prophecy College. I can see that from here as well. By the way, many of you made it possible for us to purchase the area in the Cloud building for the Jerusalem Prophecy College. I want to just stop a moment and thank all of you that gave so generously back then, because this has given Endtime Ministries a base of operations here in Jerusalem. Let me tell you, the Bible prophesies the greatest revival the world has ever known, and much of it will be happening right here in Jerusalem. I believe that your giving made that possible. Now, we've got a lot of work to do here. So if you want to continue to support us, support the college, support our staff members that are here on site, all of that, of course, does take financial backing. But a lot of you are so faithful with your partnerships. I want to thank you. Let me tell you, the biggest and the best is yet to come. But as I'm here in Jerusalem, I'm thinking of David saying, if I forget the old Jerusalem, let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. Let my right hand forget her cunning. It is a special place. And God said, I will put my name there. So wonderful to be here in Jerusalem. I wish all of you were with us. And I know that's not physically possible, but I'm trying to bring you Jerusalem every day this week from one perspective or another. We are taking your calls today. Jim Stiglman is anchoring our program back in Plano, Texas. And if you would like to be on the air with us today, the number to call is 877 Endtime to order any of our products or to become a partner. That number is 800 Endtime. So from Here to Armageddon series, 800 Endtime. For the Berlin Wall series, from 800 Endtime, or to become a partner, same number, 800 Endtime. But to be on the air with Jim and myself, that number is 877 Endtime. We would love to hear from you. Now, Jim, while we're waiting for our callers, I've got another story that I just feel like everyone needs to hear. This particular story, it's a report. Votes switched from Trump to Hillary in Texas. Residents of at least 2 cities in Texas are complaining that they voted for Donald Trump only to see the voting machine switch their ballot to Hillary Clinton. Here's the story. In Amarillo, Texas, a woman was shocked to see her ballot flip from Republican to Democrat. Gary and I went to early vote today, wrote Lisa Hulett on Facebook. I voted a straight Republican ticket, and as I scrolled to submit my ballot, I noticed that the Republican straight ticket was highlighted. However, the Clinton Kane box was also highlighted. I tried to go back and change and could not get it to work. I asked for help from one of the workers, and she couldn't get it to go back either. It took a second election person to get the machine to where I could correct the vote to a straight ticket, she added. Meanwhile, in Arlington, Texas, another voter reported a similar experience. I had a family member that voted this morning, and she voted straight Republican, wrote Shandy Clark. She checked before she submitted, and the vote had changed to Clinton. She reported it and made sure her vote was changed back. They commented that it had been happening. Social media forums are also ablaze with concerns about votes being switched. Multiple reports on my Facebook, Periscope, Snapchat, and Twitter from my friends in Texas, and all of them had their votes switched to Clinton automatically. One post on the Donald Reddit is headlined. The reports are alarming, especially given the fact that the media, Hillary Clinton's campaign, and even President Obama himself have all attempted to dismiss Donald Trump's concerns about vote rigging as a baseless conspiracy theory. I felt like you should know that, and here's one of the reasons why. When you vote, watch it all the way. Make sure that when you hit submit, that everything is marked like you intended for it to be marked, because apparently there's something going on here. Now, let me let you know this. This comes from the Daily Caller. This is on the 18th of October. Soros-connected company provides voting machines in 16 states. Now, Soros has donated $7 million at least to the Clinton campaign. He is a sponsor of Black Lives Matter and many other far left-leaning organizations. Now, here's what this article says. Smartmatic, a UK-based voting technology company with deep ties to George Soros, has control over voting machines in 16 states, including battleground zones like Arizona, Colorado, Florida, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. Other jurisdictions affected are California, District of Columbia, Illinois, Louisiana, Missouri, New Jersey, Oregon, Washington, and Wisconsin. Its website includes a flowchart that describes how the company has contributed to elections in the U.S. from 2006 up until 2015, with 57,000 voting and counting machines deployed and 35 million voters assisted. The article goes on to say, it also lists Cook County, Illinois, as another success story when in 2006, Smartmatic signed what at that moment was the largest election automation contract in U.S. history. Cook County includes Chicago and its suburbs, a geographic zone that has historically and lately been subject to criticism for voter fraud. The chairman of Smartmatic is Lord Mark Malloch Brown, who sits in the British House of Lords and on the board of George Soros's Open Society Foundations. He was formerly the vice chairman of Soros's investment funds and even the deputy secretary general of the United Nations when he worked as chief of staff to Kofi Annan, who was the secretary general at that time. In addition to a close relationship with Soros, Malloch Brown has worked with consulting firms that are well connected to Bill and Hillary Clinton. He was an international partner with the Sawyer Miller consulting firm and was a senior advisor to FTI Consulting. Just thought you ought to know. So when you vote, when those electronic machines, make sure that what you push is actually what you end up getting, because some people, it's not happening. Now, if the ones that it's happened to, if a few of them have reported, how many have not reported? And furthermore, how many didn't even notice it when they clicked down through there? They just pushed submit and that was it. So already I'm sure that there's been some fraud taking place. So be careful. I'm very glad to bring this to you early on so you can watch for it very, very carefully. Wow, what days we live in. Okay, now just before we get to the phones, by the way, we have open lines right now. Before we do, there's one more thing that I just thought you should hear. Russia reveals chilling first images of super nuke called Satan II, which has power to devastate area the size of Texas. One nuclear weapon, an area size of Texas. Russia has revealed its biggest ever nuclear missile, which is powerful enough to destroy a country as big as France with a single strike. Think about that. Vladimir Putin is seeking to replace his arsenal of SS-18 Satan weapons with the new RS-28 Sarmat super nukes. They are packed with up to 16 nuclear warheads, according to pictures revealed online from the Make Rocket Design Bureau. The weapons, which will be ready for launch in 2018, will make the bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki look like pop guns, experts have said. A message posted alongside the picture said, in accordance with the decree of the Russian government on the State Defense Order for 2010 and the planning period 2012 through 13, the Make Rocket Design Bureau was instructed to start design and develop work on the Sarmat. They're calling this the Satan II, and it will be ready for deployment in 2018. Sobering, to say the least. One more thing. Moscow weapon experts have said the so-called Satan II will be able to evade radar defenses and could travel far enough to strike London or the east and west coast of the United States of America. No wonder Jesus said, except those days be shortened, no flesh would be saved alive. That's what we're looking at here. Mankind having this incredible power, one nuclear weapon, wipe out the nation of France. What's France? 70, 80 million people? One nuclear weapon over that area supposedly can cover the entirety of Texas. That's where I live. So very, very concerning to say the least. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get to the phones right now. Jim, are you there with me?
Yes, I am. I'm right here.
Okay, let's go.
We're ready to go to the phones. 1-877-END-TIMES, our on-air number to talk to Irvin. And let's start today out in Florida with Joe. You're up.
Hi, I have a question. Do you feel that if one candidate is elected, that we will be closer to the end time than if the other candidate is elected?
No, Joe, because God has a timetable, and it's not going to speed up or slow down. So there is a plan in place. The only question is, where are we right now? The human race can change its mind, but God won't change his mind. The timetable is already established. Here's the thing that has to be considered. Hillary Clinton is very strongly in favor of moving us into a system of global governance. She's for open borders so that all the populations of the world can mix, so that the Judeo-Christian value system of the United States of America will be diluted and totally eliminated, and we can move into what's called the New World Order. Well, because she wants that, that would accelerate the move toward one world government. On the other hand, if Donald Trump wins, he wants to back out of the system of global governance. He wants to reestablish our borders and make sure that everyone who comes in legally. So we're faced with those two stark choices. Do we favor globalism? Do we favor retaining national sovereignty? According to the prophecies, the way I understand them, the one world government is coming. However, the United States is going to end up backing out. If Hillary's elected, we're still going to back out because the prophecies are true. Now, she may not be elected, which may mean we're that close. But if she is elected, something's going to happen. We're still going to end up getting a president that's going to back us out of the one world government, because the Bible very clearly depicts us defending Israel against the Antichrist, which means we're going to be in opposition to the Antichrist. So from that perspective, that's where we are. One more thing. The Bible teaches there's a war coming that's going to wipe out 1/3 of the world's population. Whoever wins this presidential election, unless this thing happens really quick under the Obama administration, but there's not much time left, whoever wins this election is going to preside over that war. It'll be the worst legacy you could ever want for your presidential campaign. We're coming up against another break. We'll continue to take your calls. The number to call, 877-END-TIME, 877-363-8463, and we'll be right back.
Take your understanding of the end time to a new level with our Outlines and Quizzes workbook. This workbook accompanies our Understanding the End Time 14 lesson series. As you watch each lesson, follow along with the outlines, then take a quiz and check your answers at the end. These are all contained in one convenient workbook so you can study as well as teach prophecy wherever you go. Use it as a study guide to cement main points and scriptures that Irvin teaches in each lesson. It's also a great tool if you host an End Time Bible study. Help your group solidify what they're learning by getting a copy for each person to follow along with the video and then to take home and study on their own. Get the workbook by calling 1-800-END-TIME or go to endtime.com and be ready to instruct many as the scripture says.
I'm sitting here in downtown Jerusalem. I'm looking out my window at the beautiful lights of the city of Jerusalem. What a feeling. There's nothing like it. I've traveled a lot of places in the world. I've been to China. I've been to India. I've been to Syria. I've been to Egypt. I've been to Jordan. I've been to London, to Paris, Germany. Been a lot of places, been down to Chile in South America. And of all the places I've ever been, there is not one view like the view of Jerusalem from the Mount of Olives. You stand there, it's enough to take your breath away. You look right down in front of you. Immediately in front of you is the Kidron Valley, where the Battle of Armageddon will end. And then just across the Kidron Valley is the Temple Mount area, where presently the Dome of the Rock stands, the Al-Aqsa Mosque stands. Soon another structure will be added according to the prophecies of the Bible, and that structure will be Israel's third temple. So we're living in climactic times. Now, a lot of people are looking, how do we tell that we're close? My Jewish driver who brought us here early this morning, 5 o'clock this morning actually, we began to talk. And he said, well, how do we know where we are right now? And I began to explain to him that we have very specific prophecies that there's going to be a peace agreement. And when that peace agreement is signed, they're going to build Israel's third temple within the first 3.5 years of that agreement. And the Temple Institute now has everything prepared to build the third temple. And this has only been true as of November of 2013. Only as of then did they have all the furniture completed. The last piece was the Ark of the Covenant. I saw it for the first time in November of 2013. The last thing they're working on right now is to get a red heifer that they believe is qualified. Now, there are undoubtedly already red heifers qualified, but they want, the rabbis here in Israel, they want the red heifer to be born in Israel. Now, there's no reason for that. There's no Bible for that. It just simply says, take a red heifer of the third year without blemish, on which there's never been a yoke, and offer her, burn the flesh, take the ashes, mingle with water, and that would cleanse people from contact with a dead body. Right now, many of the rabbis of Israel do not believe that Jews should be going up to the Temple Mount. When you go up on the Temple Mount, there's a sign there from one of the rabbis saying Jews should not be here because we are not ritually pure. That means we've not had the red heifer. They've not had what they believe is a qualified red heifer for the last 2,000 years. But they launched a huge program last year with an expert cattle raiser right here in Israel to produce that red heifer. They say this is the last thing between us and the building of the third temple, and they're working on it right now. Plus, they're working on the peace agreement right now. There's all kinds of talk about it. And so when we put all the pieces of the puzzle together, it's pretty obvious that we're getting very, very close. Could they sign the peace agreement within the next 12 months? Absolutely. Could it take 2 or 3 years? Very possibly as well. But we're in the vicinity right now. The international community is putting increasing pressure on Israel, and it's not going to let up. Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinians, is determined that he will push the United Nations until finally it adopts a resolution forcing a solution on the Palestinian-Israeli problem. That's where we are right now. You'll be reading about it in your news tomorrow. I don't know how the UNESCO is going to vote tomorrow, but they are supposed to vote tomorrow, and it will either back off a little bit or it will reaffirm the UN bias against Israel. It is very, very biased against Israel. So anyway, all that is happening right now. It's so interesting. And Jim, I'm ready to come back to the phones if you're ready.
All righty, I am ready. 1-877-363-8463 is our on-air number to talk to Irvin. And let's go now to Indiana. And Jim, you're up.
Yeah, I was wanting to say, you were made a comment earlier that somebody would have a terrible legacy if they that no president would want to rule over World War III.
Yes.
But then there's people that think differently, that would think that was the most opportunity and would love to have something like that happen. And I was just
Jim,
wanting to say there's other people that think differently than that.
Jim, when you talk about this, I think you're right. There are some people that believe the world's population needs to be reduced by 2/3. The Bible prophesies this war is going to reduce the world's population by 1/3. But think about this. If you're the president who gives the orders to push the nuclear buttons, that ends up wiping out 2.4 billion people. And you will go down in history for that decision. There's a lot of shade that's thrown on Truman because he gave the order to use the nuclear bomb. There's a lot of second guessing. There's a lot of horrible criticism saying he should not have done that. Now, he justified it saying, I saved more lives than I cost because Japan was digging in for the long haul, and we short-circuited World War II and brought it to a quick conclusion. Well, whatever the case may be, let's just talk right now about this. Let's say Hillary would win the presidency, and then let's say that events would converge together and World War III would blow up in all of our faces. Then she would preside over this war. We don't know exactly how it's all going to go. All we know is that the result will be 2.4 billion people dead, 1/3 of the world's population wiped out. It will be unthinkable. They'll be burying people with bulldozers. We'll be scrambling for cures to nuclear sickness. It's going to be catastrophic worldwide. They're going to be rebuilding whole cities and possibly whole countries. You heard here that Russia now has a nuclear weapon that can destroy all of France in one big blow. So it's going to be catastrophic. Now, if she follows that, and if in turn she then is voted out of office 4 years later, then America is going to swing back the other way and is going to say, let's get out of the world's business. Let's mind our own business. We've got all this trouble we've caused. And they're going to elect someone that will take us back the other way. On the other hand, if Trump wins, and if he's the one who presides over this war, of course, he's going to get the blame for it. But also, he's going to pull us back now. So it's a matter of whether we're pulled back now or pulled back 4 years, maybe 8 years from now. I don't see how it can last that long. Anyway, that's the way I think it's going to happen.
Doesn't she believe in global warming and overpopulation? And wouldn't she think it was a good thing if a lot of people were eliminated?
Well, I don't want to speak on behalf of Hillary Clinton. She does believe in global warming, and she probably does believe in overpopulation. That part is true. Now, whether she would go so far as to believe that a nuclear war that wipes out 1/3 of mankind would be a good thing, now that's quite an accusation. I do know that there are many people who embrace the New World Order that do believe that the population should be reduced, and they would not mind at all for that to happen. But, you know, you got to be a really, really calloused and warped human being to be able to embrace and be in favor of 1/3 of mankind being destroyed. But you got to be a really callous human being to be in favor of partial birth abortion too. I mean, you think about a baby being partially born and then them killing that baby and pulling it out of the womb. I mean, to me, you talk about callous. A person that could do that could...
And they make a profit from selling baby parts.
Yes, and that's come out, and it's been horrible. It should have been front and center on this presidential campaign, frankly, because it is horrific with all capital letters, to say the least, that they were trafficking in baby parts, and some of them actually were looking for certain parts, and they took advantage of abortions in order to supply those things. And it's a millions of dollars racket. So it's hard for me to even talk about this, to think that's really happening, but yet it has come out that it did happen, and apparently is still happening right now. It's just so abhorrent and so shocking that I can hardly speak about it.
Well,
thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jim. And, you know, we bring a lot of interesting things to the table here. I'm going to be reporting to you from right here in Jerusalem over the next several days. And I'm going to try my best to convey to you. Now, here's where we are right now. Jerusalem just came through the High Holy Days. The last day of Sukkot, which is the Feast of Tabernacles, was either Sunday or Monday. And it's during those times that sometimes enemies of Israel like to cause disturbances. There were a couple of small incidents that happened. Nothing huge nor major. They are expecting everything to die down and for it to be calm. Now, you have to realize when you have one or two incidents among 8 million people, that's like saying you have one or two incidents in New York City. People live on and don't even bat an eye, don't even realize it happened. Nevertheless, that's where Israel is living right now. But Israel wants to solve this problem. They want a peace agreement. Now, some people say that Netanyahu really is claiming he's for the two-state agreement, but he's only saying that to buy time until the settlements can grow bigger and bigger and bigger until it's impossible to move them. Well, whether that's true or not, I do not know. He claims that he wants peace. He claims that he would like to strike a deal right now. There was an article that just appeared today that his defense minister, Avigdor Lieberman, has sent out a feeler to the Palestinians. Look, if you'll cooperate with us, things will get better and better for you. We want them to get better, and already they're allowing several thousand truckloads of supplies to go in there every single day, even though Lieberman is known as a very hard right-wing person. In actuality, he's not governing that way. So that's where we are right now. Listen, my time is coming gone. Let me take just a moment to tell you once again, because it's so important, that we will be having our annual prophecy conference here in downtown Jerusalem this Sunday, October the 30th at 7:30 p.m. It will be held in the Kalal building. That's K-L-A-L, or some people actually spell it C-L-A-L. It's the Kalal building in downtown Jerusalem. The address is 97 Jaffa Street. The air train goes right by it, stops right in front of the Kalal building there at Davidka Square. And so I think most everybody would know where that is. You could take the train right there, get off, come right across to the Kalal building, and we will be on the main floor, the first floor of the Kalal building in what's called the Pavilion. It's a beautiful auditorium there. And I will be speaking on the subject, From Here to Armageddon. I will be laying out from Scripture what's going to happen, the major events. The Bible lays it all out there for us, and we'll be sharing that with you. Will have our entire series From Here to Armageddon available to people. We also will allow people to enroll in our Jerusalem Prophecy College. We'll be telling you all about that at the meeting. So call your friends, call your family. If they live here in Israel, let them know. Make it to the Cloud Building this coming Sunday evening, 7:30 at 97 Jaffa Street. Hope you can be there.
End of the Age is a production of Endtime Ministries. This broadcast will be available on our website, endtime.com, in the archives section. On our website, you'll also find more information about how current events are fulfilling Bible prophecy. To reach our operators, call 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463. Endtime Ministries is partner supported. We would like to say thank you to our partners who made this broadcast possible. To do what Matthew 24:14 said, to reach the world with the gospel of the kingdom.